this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, we are back. We've got Colonel Frans Fourie with us again. And most welcome, yes sir. Thank you for your time. I have to thank your wife as well. I don't agree with it that you talk too much. In fact, I don't think you talk enough. But talking about talk, I got some letters from people asking me why I did not ask you last week how your ankle is going. So we'll start this episode with that. So how's your ankle going?
Hello, Quest, thank you very much. It's great to talk face to face again. I miss you. And before I answer the question, Quest, I firstly once again want to thank you and your wife Rebecca for the many hours you spend behind the scenes to get the programs out. And I know it's a lot of hours. You are burning the candle for very long, and we really appreciate that, Quest. And I'm sure it's not only me that appreciates that. There's a lot of people that appreciate that, Quest. And then to the viewers, as I've said before, yes, I go and look just to see if there's questions I have to answer, and then I see there's a lot of people looking at what I have to say, and I want to thank all the viewers for listening or viewing what I have to say. And then a special thanks to the people that is asking questions and leave comments. I haven't received one negative comment, and everything is so positive, and it just shows me that the people that actually listens and probably that comments are such positive people and have a keen interest in the history. So I really want to thank them all, and you humble me, and I really appreciate that very much. Of course, my ankle is getting better by the day. I'm still in the moon boot, and I've started walking without the crutches. Now, I'm not too sure if my orthopedic surgeons, if they see this, are going to keep this against me or whatever. But no, it's going very well. I still have to wear it for 3 weeks, and thereafter I'm lined up for another operation, but that's a story for another time. But so no, it's going well. Thank you, Quest. Quest, I want to just, as I normally do, just hook on to the previous episode where we stopped, and then I'll take it forward from there. Of course, in the previous episode, I completed staff course in 1994. Bear in mind, that was the year of the first democratic elections in South Africa, where everybody participated in the elections, and a democratic government was elected. The ANC came into power, and it's a total change in the history of South Africa, as well as to the operational, military-wise, a new government where the ANC pre-April 94 was the adversaries. And I'm not talking politics, it's just the way it is. All of a sudden is your masters, because, and I think a very important thing was, if you are a professional soldier, you serve the government of the day. There should not be place for politics. Obviously, each person has his ideologies and so on. But if you are a true professional soldier, you serve the government of the day. And I think, and I can testify that an organization like Special Forces and myself, and a lot of my colleagues, that's our viewpoint as to a professional soldier and what your role and function as a militarist is that you serve the government of the day. There's no room for party politics and you know, the chatter around that. You are a soldier, your commander-in-chief is the president, and especially so with Special Forces. Special Forces has always been the pinnacle and report to either directly to the Chief of the Defence Force and the Minister of Defence or the President. And they also authorize our operations. So, you know, there's no space and room for political indifferences and stuff like that. If you have that, you have to take your stuff and go. Otherwise, you serve the government of the day. Yes, 94, government change. Obviously, over time, command changes took place within the SA NDF, because it changed from the South African Defence Force to the South African National Defence Force after 1994. Another thing we must realize is that, and I've mentioned it in some of our covert operations which we did, negotiations started taking place as of 92, even 91, 92, 93, and obviously the elections in 94. As I've also mentioned in the previous episode, that we still conducted operations where the ANC denied certain stuff they were doing in terms of training of MK and, you know, preparing certain stuff. And we uncovered and unveiled the bases where they actually did that. We took photographs of it. We presented to the higher hierarchy. We also made that available to the politicians and the negotiators, and at the stage, you know, really presented that information, where I think the ANC and their negotiators, and I was in two of the incidences, was said that they were stunned, and, you know, they couldn't believe that the proof we actually put on the table with photographs was there. So I think they stood with red faces, but as it may be, the fact that they carried on with whatever they were doing, you know, also proves their commitment to what they were doing, and, you know, also remaining and keeping up with their preparations. So actually, if you are objective and look at it, nothing wrong with that. But if you look at from a opponent's side, that's what we do. We are all military people, strategic thinkers, and that's the way it was. So, of course, we have to bear in mind that these negotiations was taking place. Now, I just want to mention one thing, and I think it's known to most people that is, you know, following the history and so on of Special Forces in South Africa. Whilst the negotiations was going on in 93, 92, it actually started in 92. Some high-ranking people said that we should hide away, in inverted commas, our Special Forces capability. And they saw it fit to do a name change of the Special Forces fraternity within the National Defence Force, or the Defence Force at that point in time. So they decided that they would change the name of the reconnaissance commandos and the reconnaissance units to 45 Parachute Brigade. And they also changed the parachute organization to 44 Parachute Brigade. So on the hierarchies and the organizational charts of the Defence Force, there was no special forces presented to on the negotiations and so on. I don't know who they bullshitted, but that's what was done. Is that 4-5 brigade was actually the special forces. So that took place in I think in August 1993. They actually did an official name change of Special Forces to 4-5 Parachute Brigade. 451 Parachute Regiment was 5 Recce. 452 was 1 Recce, and 453 was 4 Reconnaissance Regiment. And there was plans to change all the insignia, etc., and examples was put forward and so on. But that didn't kick off very well. But all the units' names in front, on the big entrance boards, etc., changed to the 4-5 Parachute Brigade names and logos. So so that's just an interesting thing that took place. Of course, there's a book, and I'll send you the link, and I'm sure you're aware of that. The book is called Recce. It's by Calcraft, and I'm under correction now, but I'll send you the link. They've documented, and we've assisted and helped them a lot in putting this book together. It is really a very good book if you want to go into the finer detail of dates and name changes and the changing of the regalia and so on. It's a very well done book. Everybody from General Loots through Colonel Jan Breitenbach and Sergeant Major Moorcroft, and a lot of people contributed to them actually putting that book together. So if everybody or anybody is interested in those finer detail, and it makes a very good read and an interesting read, is to actually have a look or acquire that book and have a look at that. Course, then okay, that's it. I completed my staff course. I mentioned that I was given the option to either do the British staff course or become the commander of one Special Forces regiment, and I opted to become the officer commanding of one Special Forces regiment. Of course, so when staff course was completed, I went back to Langebaan. I knew I was going to Durban, to 1 Recce. Took the family up there and just checked it out and see where we were going to live and so on. Now in Durban, as the officer commanding of one Special Forces regiment, you have a allocated accommodation from the military, which is a beautiful house. It's on the bluff, an old colonial type double-story house overlooking the sea, with terraces and swimming pool and so on. So it was, it's a really a very nice house. The then commander, Colonel Andre Diedrichs, also a very famous guy and a legend within Special Forces, was still living because he was then the commander of one Special Forces regiment. So we went there, checked that out, and they would only move out of their house, I think, around in February or so. So we were allocated a house on the bluff at the old base of one Special Forces regiment, or the old 1 Recce, an old wooden structure, very well cared for and looked after, where we then eventually moved in for a few months before we moved to the official house on the bluff. Of course, then maybe just a short, interesting thing. Whilst we drove up from Langebaan to Durban, we have a very good friend. He studied with a military academy with me. He's a Air Force pilot, and he became a chopper instructor as well as a Vlamgat, Impala instructor. So, Hoofie is a very good pilot, and they lived in George, and he was then the main pilot for the people looking for oil and gas offshore from Mossel Bay and so on. And Hoofie was also very into estates and properties and so on. And they invited us to stay over for the weekend, and Hoofie, I said to Hoofie, I need a good farm. I want to be a farmer. I think I'm finished with the army now. And Hoofie actually took me to a few farms, and of course it's also a story for later. But there was one farm which Irvin and Johnson, the people that do fish and vegetables and so on, they rented this farm from or his lands for cultivating peas, the green peas and so on. And he was a teacher at the school, and his farm was up for sale. So it was really on the knife's edge that I actually, bought that farm and maybe quitted in the military and so on. But as I've said, the story for later, we went to Durban, and I was really motivated, and we carried on with that part of our lives. I was also, after doing fairly well on the staff course, I was very motivated to also further my academical studies, and I enrolled at the University of Stellenbosch Business School for an honors degree, to further my academical studies. So that was also done, and that would entail distant learning, and then I think it was a week every quarter residential for attending classes and so on, which I also did and carried on with. Of course, in Durban, when I first joined Special Forces back in the early 80s, I was a second lieutenant there, and now I was back at one Special Forces as the officer commanding. So it's a transition period, and it makes you humble, but proud, and the Special Forces community is small, so I knew all the people there, they knew me, and it wasn't a new thing. It was just a new posting, so to speak, which was very enjoyable. Maybe another comical thing that happened at that stage, Taffy Pelser was the second in command. Now Taffy Pelser is he was also he's actually a very naughty guy, and a real live wire. He passed away a few years ago, rest in peace. But and Taffy he enjoyed hot food, curries and chilies, and him and Pep, Sergeant Major Pep, they used to concoct the hottest chili stuff and burning stuff you can think of, and they thought everybody liked that. Now, if there's one thing myself and my wife can't really absorb, is hot food. Now, after we arrived there, after all the official parades and handing overs and whatever, there was a semi-formal occasion which was very, very nice. But and Taffy arranged the mess at one Recce. All the chefs there was Indian chefs, and over time, with Taffy, basically overseeing the mess and what was going on there, and with Pep there, Sergeant Major Pep, hot stuff was of the order of the day. So they thought they would treat us very nicely that night, and from the hors d'oeuvres, the entrees, and the main dishes and so on, there was no choice. Everything was hot. So myself and Elaine, we really, it was a great night, and the social activities and the chatter and it was really great. But we really could not eat because it was too hot, and yeah, it's just an interesting. We went home that night. We really had a good evening, but we went home hungry because of we couldn't eat all this hot stuff. But I think it's a Durban tradition, so that was just very interesting. Of course, back to the command and the duties I had to do as a commander at One Recce. Obviously, the transformation or the integration of the non-statutory forces or their special forces had to take place. So it was MK, it was Transkei, it was Babuta Tswana, it was all the non-statutory special forces that was actually brought to Durban. Now, Andre dealt with that since I think the November 94. The people started going there, and they had a bridging training program going. Now, the bridging training program entailed pretty much, just introducing the non-statutory special forces guys as to what the old special forces or the statutory force special forces was and what they were doing, etc. So that went on, and obviously, December is December. It's Christmas. It's holiday time. People take leave. There was a change of command, so December was actually very slow and not much took place. Although a lot of the non-statutory forces that was accommodated in Durban, just had a very peaceful time with good discipline and so on, but not much took place. Of course, then when I took over, officially took command on the 1st of January 1995, I was promoted to a substantive colonel, and that was the situation. Myself and Andre Diedrichs did a good handing and taking over, and Andre, I think, only left at the end of either January, mid-February. But so he was still in the unit, but with no portfolio or whatever. Although Andre established his second career in the security services, and he had a posting at the security firm in Durban, and he spent most of his time developing his second career and preparing stuff like that. I'm just mentioning this because later on it would also impact on me, because Andre went over to Grey Security Africa. And Grey Security Africa, or Grey Security, at that point in time, there was a book out, the best 10 companies to work for in South Africa. It's a thick book compiled by the business fraternity, and Grey Security was actually one of the top 10 companies to work for in South Africa at that point in time. Now, Andre also was a very professional guy, and he was drafted to them by Alec de Wit and Van de Toy, and he did very, very well in Grey Security, in the external leg of Grey Security. Okay, was then another important thing that happened is Brigadier General C.J. Borman, Boris Borman, that has also done a few programs, was promoted from a colonel to a brigadier, and he was appointed as the new officer commanding Special Forces Brigade. So, you know, on the same day, on the 1st of January 95, Brigadier General Borman was appointed as the OC Special Forces, and I was appointed as OC 1 Special Forces Regiment. We didn't know one another, but that didn't matter. But you know, I'll get to more of that detail as we carry on. Now, what I can say about Brigadier Borman or Brigadier General Borman at this early stage is, you know, he's a very intelligent person, and he's got an extremely juvenile personality. You know, he's really an easy guy to associate with and engage in talks, but he's a no-nonsense guy. Don't confuse that, you know, openness and the way he approaches, and he, you know, he makes a lot of jokes, and because he's very intelligent, he makes certain jokes which can very easily be, you know, misunderstood if you are not sharp enough to actually see what he means behind it. But and the fact that he could speak several African languages and other languages, I think made him the perfect choice for a commander for Special Forces at that point in time. Why? He could interact very, very well in the language of a lot of the African people, and you know, his personality just allowed and opened up so many venues, you know, as a friendly person, and you know, really, you know, dealing diplomatically in such a way with politicians and higher people. So I think he was the perfect choice for Special Forces at that point in time. And I think it played off, and it worked out very, very well for Special Forces going on. Of course, back to the activities that was taking place at Recce. Obviously, as I've mentioned before, Recce was responsible for all the training of Special Forces, and then also had a operational commando. So 1-1 commando was the operational commando, and 1-2 commando was the training commando. Now, within 1-2, the training part of it, we had a lot of very professional people there that wasn't badged Special Forces people. They weren't Special Forces instructors or whatever, but they were specialists in their field, such as parachuting, demolitions, signals, medical, and you know, the fields we were training in. So we would have permanently on our staff, on the payroll of 1 Special Forces, people in 1-2 commando that trained the Special Forces guys in the fields we required them. We received over the time 3 visits from the Minister of Defense and the newly appointed structures of the new government, by the names of Joe Medici and Johnny Casserols and people like that. So they would come to 1 Recce, obviously accompanied by Brigadier Borman, and they would come and see what the training and the integration, etc., you know, what was happening, and speaking to their people to see if they were treated well, etc. But the main point was, how do you integrate the non-statutory forces that was also special forces trained into special forces. So, they said to me as the commander and to obviously Brigadier Bormann, these people were trained by the Russians and the Cubans and the Chinese and got, inputs and training from everywhere. And they are actually probably better than what you have. So, I put forward a plan and presented that to Brigadier Bormann, and I said to him, sir, if we want to maintain a special forces which is equal in capability and capacity as the on international standards, the British SAS or the SEALs or the GSG-9 or whoever in the world, I believe we should stick to the training curricula and the programs the old SADF had. And there was heated debates about it. And they said, yeah, we can't carry on the old system and this, that, and the other. And, I, in a very respectful way and, diplomatically pointed out to them that, special forces, if you want to use them as a strategic force and do certain operations, everybody has to be on the same level. They have to have the same training. You do not need to look over your left or right shoulder if you go into an operation or execute the task. Everybody should do the same thing and should be trained on the same level. And the battle talk you have and everything going with that should be the same. So I recommended that we use the old Special Forces curriculum and the building blocks of training to achieve that as a new or integrated Special Forces organization within the new SANDF. As I've said, there was debate going on that. And I said to them that if they could present the curriculums and the training material of certain subjects and certain matters we did not cover within our Special Forces curricula, I would incorporate that, and we would get then their instructors to train us, and so that we could all progressively build and grow to a better organization. Was yes, there was debates going on about that, and they took a break and discussed that, and they came back and they said, okay, they will accept that. Or prior to that was, I said, I'm newly appointed here, I'm the new commander, but I really, as a non-political figure and a professional soldier, wanted to see that Special Forces remained and maintained their standard and could be equal to any other Special Forces in the world. So they accepted that, or I said to them, if they don't agree with that, because that's my vision and that's how I saw it, they should consider removing me from the post. Because whilst I am in command of one Recce, and I get the approval from Brigadier Bormann, which is my commander, that is what I recommend, and we recommend, and the road we should take. Was to cut a long story short, they accepted that. But they had one point they wanted to push. They said, well, if our people have to go through the building blocks, do the retraining, then your people have to do that as well. So, I said to them, I understand what you are saying, but I don't think it's necessary, because they have done it. They have passed the courses. They have their pings. They've done it. They said, yes, but, we've done it as well. And I said, yes, you've done it as well, but on another standard and not according to the training curricula we have. Once again, was cutting a long story short, they accepted that. And, in our planning and preparation sessions with our instructors and 1-2 commando commander, we made sure that we trained the integration people on the same level. And if one commando was free, they would join in the training, not to be retrained, or yes, to be retrained as a progressive retraining exercise and integrate, so that the people could start learning one another. Because I think a very important thing we must understand is, although we are professional soldiers, one can say we've lost the war. We fought this war for many years, and the political situation just dictated that our adversaries overnight became our commanders and our new government. But as I've said, as a professional soldier, you have to accept that. But on the other hand, and the other side of that coin, you must understand that a lot of the guys got shot, got injured, lost friends, lost brothers, and comrades. And so, the emotional part of the integration and the post-94 situation should be understood by anybody. Now, as a commander and my command group within one Special Forces, I really tried and endeavored to place a lot of emphasis on the mental part of us adapting to the new situation and accepting the new situation we were in. Now, within that time, we had a lot of resignations, people that said, that's it, I'm leaving, and so on, which is fine. That's each person's own democratic choice, and a lot of people moved on. But a lot of people stayed, and they accepted that and wanted to be a professional Special Forces soldier. So, of course, that is the way we managed and dealt with the integration training. So the bottom line of the integration training was that the non-statutory forces people went through the building blocks of all the training on the same standard of the previous Special Forces. And I think it's important for anybody listening to this program and all the South Africans to understand that there was no drop in standards with the integration. And we maintain that to this day. Well, I can't say much about today, but what I see of our Special Forces today, it is still maintained. So, of course, I think that is a thing we can be very proud of, is that despite of political differences or whatever your political inclination was or whatever, we stayed professional soldiers, we maintained standards, and we made sure that the force, the Special Forces force, was at a level that could compete anywhere in the world, equal to anybody. Another argument I put forward to the political leaders at that stage was training goes hand in hand with equipment. So within the non-statutory environment, they had different types of equipment. But within our fraternity, we had certain equipment which was designed and developed to the specific application and how we executed operations. So your training always goes hand in hand with your equipment. And obviously that was one of the points they understood. And I think that was also one of the major factors that, made them decide that whatever we put forward in terms of the retraining would be accepted. Well, so I think everything went very well in terms of the training And I must say today that we got brilliant Special Forces operators from all the non-statutory forces people, which built a Special Forces which is still in existence today, that can still equally compete with any Special Forces in the world out there. So I think we, by the grace of God and the wisdom of God, you know, from both sides, our side and the integration part of that, realized that, and I think we maintained the standards of Special Forces. Was what the new government actually also said is that you know, the PT tests and the physical tests need to be done by everybody. Now, one must understand that a lot of people became, you know, went on in time, older, and you know, if you are 50 or 40, you can't run a 2,4 like a guy of 21 years old. Well, a lot of them still can, but you know, and we didn't compensate. We didn't say if you are 40, you had to run it in a certain time, and if you were 21, you had to have a lower time. There was one standard for everybody equally applied. So we did that, and you know, everybody was happy, and we really ran a transparent system. And you know, all results was passed on to higher command, and it was totally transparent. As I've said, the upper echelons paid visits several times, and they had a one-to-one chat with the people on the ground, and we never encountered in my time one single problem regarding that. Now, as I've explained previously, was minor tactics is the pinnacle of, or the culmination of all the training at the end of the building blocks for Special Forces training. So what I also instituted or made mandatory is that during the minor tactics phase of the integration training, everybody, non-statutory forces, our old statutory forces, minor tactics would be inclusive of everybody. Because minor tactics is actually the course where you hone all the skills, you integrate all the training you have into a battle-ready unit. And that was done like that. Was now I must put myself in inverted commas here, or in brackets, because when that minor tactics took place, I wasn't, or I was still the commander of one Recce, but I couldn't monitor and actually physically participate or monitor that, and I'll come to the reason why. So that is what was done. Then in March, April of 95, whilst the you know, training was carrying on, and you know, we had this high numbers of people resigning, and you know, most of the people, you know, wanted orders with me, and you know, they asked a lot of questions, and you know, this, that, and the other. So I realized that, you know, the morale of the guys were low, and you know, they said, so, you know, is these new guys gonna wear the same operator's badges I'm gonna wear, and so on? I says, yes, they are, you know, because we are taking them through the same training. So yes, they are going to wear the same operator's badge if they qualify at the end of the day. Now, in my previous talks, was I always referred to a badged operator. Now, you do receive a operator's badge. Now, the operator's badge is a laurel wreath with a dagger through it. Now that was instituted or it was actually started in 1985, and it was actually started by a person with the name of Frans van Dyk. He was the commando sergeant major of 11 Commando at that stage, and Brigadier Bestbier or Colonel or Commandant Bestbier at that stage, before he became the commander of 1 Recce, was the commando OC. Because all special forces in the world have a qualifying badge. You know, if you do a parachute course, you get a wing. If you do a demolitions course, you get or bomb exposal, you get a certain emblem. So Frans was actually the guy, Frans van Dyk was actually the guy that pushed this and said, you know, we should get an operator's badge. It was accepted generally by everybody, and you know, a few concepts was put forward, and all those concepts are in that book I referred to. It's there for everybody to see. But eventually, it was decided that it would be the laurel wreath with a commando dagger through that. And Frans always wanted the dagger to point upwards. And then a person, Jack Greef, I've also referred to Jack Greef at several times before, a great small teams operator. He said, no, the dagger must point downwards. Why downwards? It signifies and it typifies the commando dog was used by the SAS in the Second World War, and there was intensive training done to assassinate guards. You would grab somebody around the neck, and then you would shove subclavial. It's behind the collarbone. You would push the dagger down, and the Furban Sykes dog, what's the dog? Dagger is designed in such a way that the tip, if you shove it down subclavial, you can actually, the point of the dagger touches the arteries that's going out of the heart. So, you know, you grab a guy around the neck, you shove it down subclavial, and it actually reaches the point of the heart's arteries and aortas going out, and you wiggle it around and you cut off all the, you know, the blood. And so if you look at the significance of the design of the operator's badge, the dagger signifies the stealth and the way how you can eliminate your enemy. Why is it pointed down? It is in an aggressive way, you know, and I've told you the story where it actually originated from. It's to eliminate your enemy and pushing it down. So the dagger is that's where the dagger fits in. Then the laurel wreath signifies victory, you know, from the Olympic Games or wherever. You know, laurel wreath signifies victory. So it's a combination of stealthness, eliminating your enemy, and achieving victory. And the laurel wreath also symbolizes respect to fallen comrades. So it's got the two significances of victory and honoring the fallen comrades. So, you know, the operator's badge has a lot of meaning to it. Now, okay, that was instituted and heraldically approved by Chief of the Defence Force, and it was issued since 1985. Now, bear in mind, Special Forces and operators started in 1972. So how do you allocate numbers? You know, who gets number 1 and who gets number 99? So there was a process which was, I would say, I think the brigade commander at that stage tried to manage it in a good way, but due to a lot of administrative reasons, you know, there will be guys with an operator's number of, because each badge is numbered. So if you ask me, if you really want to test if you know who's an operator, you can ask him, you know, what's your badge number. So you know, and they should be able to tell you, because it's managed very carefully, and each person is allocated an operator's badge number. So I am 330. I'm 330, and you know, if you want to challenge anybody who alleges he's an operator, you know, ask him what's your badge number, and you know, most of the people will be able to tell you what his badge number is. But yes, so you know, you will get people that's number 33, but he should have been 310. But with some people it was a big issue, but I think they took care of it, that you know, the people that started Special Forces and the beginning, you know, they all got the right numbers. You know, Colonel Jan Breitenbach has number 2. Number 1 is always allocated to the Museum of Special Forces, and you know, Colonel Jan Breitenbach's silver or normal operator's badge and his golden badge is number 2. Okay, that's basically the operator's badges. But back to the situation with one and the integration. You know, with a low morale and you know, this whole story of, are we going to wear the same badges, etc., etc. You know, and I said yes. I started talking to my command group, my 2IC, my RSM, which was Sergeant Major Gerrit Adam Maddies, and 2IC and our chaplain Sybrand van Niekerk, who's a brilliant guy and a really visionary person, you know. And we said, how are we going to deal with this and so on. And I put the idea forward of, let's institute a golden operator's badge made of 9-karat gold, and we put a diamond in the blade of the dagger. If you had 10 years as a Special Forces operator, you get 1 diamond in the badge. If you had, at that point in time, there wasn't anybody 20 years, but for each 10 years as a dedicated Special Forces soldier, you would get another diamond of 0.03 carat in the blade. So of course I put forward that. I instructed I think Maddies, the RSM, to take it to the people that actually made our silver badges. They made a golden one, and I asked them to you know, fit a diamond, and I presented that to Brigadier Borman. He approved of, he liked the idea, and he approved of that. And then later that year was, in fact, I think on the 14th of October of 1995, the first golden operators badges was allocated at the parade at one Special Forces regiment. I did not attend that parade, but I'll get to the reason why now. So, of course, the current system of operators badges and the golden operators badge, that's the history thereof. The silver badges, and then 10 years on, which I instituted to uplift the morale of our soldiers. And it was very well accepted by everybody, and it was also heraldically approved by Chief of the Defence Force, and it carries on up until today. Of course, then the whaling station. I'm interrupting a bit. The whaling station on the bluff was our main training area, especially for urban training, because it's old buildings, which was, the flies are here listening to my story again, Chris. So I'm back on the farm. Sorry. In any case, so the main building still had very well preserved mosaic tiles in their entrance area. And I was contacted one day by a person, and I just can't recall the person's name. But in any case, he was a very well-established businessman in Durban. But his father and his grandfather was actually part of the whaling station and the whaling industry. And, you know, he had a very big sentiment to the whaling station, and he asked if he could visit that. And obviously I said, of course he could. And when he saw the mosaic work and so on, he asked if they could cut that out, because it was on the floor, if they could cut it out and, you know, take it out in a certain way and preserve it. And obviously I cleared it with HQ, you know, we gave them the approval to do that, and they did that. And they became very, very close friends of one Recce in my time. And why I'm picking this up was I just want to relate I think a bit of a comic story about that. Obviously, they were very wealthy people, and this person also had a yacht. So he invited myself and Sabi van der Spy and his wife to sail in Durban Harbor. You know, we would go to the yacht club and, you know, have breakfast in the morning, and then we would go for a sail around just in the bay, you know, in the harbor area of Durban. And we would have lunch and, you know, carry on. Any case, so said, so done. We arranged the day, and we went sailing. Now it was myself, Sabi, Sabi's wife, Liesel, my wife, Ilian, and I think our children went with. And you know, there was ample to drink and to eat on the yacht, and we enjoyed ourselves. And, you know, as it may be, we became brave and we went out of the harbor. And there was big tankers lying out, and we said, okay, we're just going to sail around that tanker. And so said and so done, and we went around, and then the wind picked up. But the wind picked up in the opposite way of going back into the harbor. So we had to sail upwind. Now, myself and Sabi, we've done a bit of sailing at Recce, but you know, we're not sailors. And we really had a huge time trying to tack back, you know, to get back into the harbor. Now, what happened is in our tacking back to the harbor entrance, we ended up on the beach side of the shark nets. Now, as you very well know, and the people know, there's a lot of sharks in the Durban area, and hence the shark nets and so on. So we were beach side of this shark nets. And as we were going out, the keel of the yacht got hooked onto one of the shark nets. And there we stood. So, you know, everybody instantly turned their eyes to me, because I was in Recce. You know, I know the sea, and I can dive and I can do everything, you know, according to them. But I didn't think it was a good idea to look at me. So I looked back at them and I said, guys, I think you know Durban better than I do. I'm new here. You guys dive into the sea and unhook this. They said, no, you the seaman, you go. So, you know, we couldn't get, I stripped down to my scans. Now, of course, this is also I want to say, a frightening time. You know, you hooked onto the shark nets, and you know there's sharks. So now I dive into the water with my scans. I mean, no goggles or anything. You go down. eyes open and you can't hardly see anything. But the first thing I'm looking for is sharks. Where's the sharks? But obviously I have to focus on getting the yacht unhooked. So, I tried to pull the net down, and it's got floaters and so on. So it's not an easy exercise. So I have to go up, grab air, go down. So there I was going up and down, trying to free the yacht from the shark nets. And eventually I got the net and slipped the keel. And off the boat went. And, there I was on the shark side of the shark nets, swimming after the yacht. And obviously the wind was blowing faster than I could swim. And Savvy, luckily, he kept his mind and he hauled out the safety buoy, and eventually I got hold of that. And if it wasn't for the safety buoy, I think I would have been shark food that day. But it was just an interesting story and a comical story. We got back into the harbor and we had a good time. Of course, then in September, August of '95, Brigadier Bormann called me to Special Forces HQ, and he informed me that there was going to be a foreign tour to the Middle East, and that himself, Brigadier Bormann, myself as the officer commanding 1 Recce, Gert Nel, the officer commanding 1 Parachute Battalion, and Major General Chris Serfontein, CS Ops of the Army, would participate in this tour to externally with 2 reasons: to explain to them our capabilities and also demonstrate certain capabilities to them, and then obviously for us to learn what they had and so on. And one of these items we had to demonstrate to them was a parachute that was designed within the Special Forces environment, which we primarily used to do air-sea ontsluiting cooperation. So it was highly maneuverable, a square. And I jumped with this parachute many a time, no problems, into the sea, onto the land. And at that stage, there was a free fall course going on in Bloemfontein at 1 Parachute Battalion. And I think it was a Monday. We got all our allowances and our passports were sorted out. And and I mentioned to the brigadier and the general that I hadn't jumped with this chute for a long time. We were going to demonstrate that, and I think maybe I must just put in a jump or two to hone my skills. So they said yes. There's a course going on in Bloemfontein. Go via Bloemfontein. I think we would have flown the Friday, and do a few jumps, go back to Durban, pack your kit, come back, we fly. So said, so done. Went to Bloemfontein on the Tuesday, checked in, everything was arranged. And then on the Wednesday morning, when the training would take place, I got my ground training, safety training, drills, everything went very, very well. But the wind was blowing that morning. I think under correction, stop drop is 13 knots, wind blowing. Over that it becomes risky for parachuting, and the whole morning it was stop drop, and at about 12 o'clock the wind died down to 13 knots, 12 knots, 11 knots, and Sergeant Major Kisser said, okay, go jump. So we went up. I jumped out at I think it was 3,000 feet, because it's a static line opening. Everything went well, and of course then the landing zone, the sand pit was just off the runway of the airport at Tempe in Bloemfontein. And I was coming downwind, and I would reckon at about 300-400 feet, I was still coming downwind, and I had to turn around to go upwind to land. And as I did that, obviously a steep turn, which they call a hook turn, which is a very sharp turn and is very dangerous if you do it too low. But you know, I thought I was okay, and then I was over the runway. So when I did that, I could feel I was just, you know, I came out of the swing, and all of a sudden I was just going down straight. So what had happened is, with a very sharp turn, and I think it's it's a accumulation of a lot of factors. The sharp turn, yes, hook turn. Then over the runway, there was an up thermal from the tar. You know, at midday, you know, the tar heats up and you get a bit of an up thermal. And obviously there was a gusting wind. So what had happened when I turned, they call it a partial canopy collapse. I got one of the cells had a partial canopy collapse. And then if you are high enough, you literally drop vertical, but then the chute flares open again and you're fine. But I was at that critical height where my vertical dropped before the chute could flare again. I connected the runway. And that's really also the last thing I can remember is you know, I just said to myself, and you know, that's the training you get, good parachute position, and I keep my feet together, heels, knees together, elbows together, and I slammed into the runway. And that's the last thing I can remember. They picked me up for dead. You know, I was I literally, just as a brief, my left calcaneus was totally mutilated to such an extent that, and I'll post a clip on it. I'll send you the clip. So I literally fell through my own feet. There's a piece of bone about a centimeter long, which was driven into my jumper boots inner sole, and I've still got it up to today, and I'll send the photograph. So my left calcaneus was totally shattered, and you know, a piece of bone came out on the other side. I broke the tibia fibula of my left and right legs, right leg knee plateau fracture, left shoulder fracture, left elbow fracture, then a base skull fracture. So I had a big brain injury. But of course, yes, I think it happened on the 13th or the 14th of September of that year. Hence, I did not attend the operators badge parade in October. Now, of course, I was admitted to 3 Mil Hospital in Bloemfontein, and that night, the military actually decided to fly my wife, my kids, my parents, my brother, sister. They flew them via SAL to Bloemfontein. They said, you know, if you want to still see him alive in the state he is, you have to come now. And of course, by the grace of God, here I am sitting today telling you the story. So I had a lot of operations, and the operation I had on my ankle now is still reconstructive surgery from that parachute accident. And if I'm recovered from this ankle operation, I am booked for another shoulder replacement on the left shoulder. So you know, I really shattered my life there. But I believe, it's an intervention by God. You know, he said, you must calm down this fellow. You know, he's moving too fast. You must do something to slow him down. And I think that's the way that God decided He's going to slow me down. But here I am, alive and well. Course, yeah. So I had the brain damage I had resulted in a big short-term memory loss. So I also had to stop my honors degree studies, and for a very long time I really battled very much to, you know, get my short-term memory back. It's fine, and after about 2 years, you know, I could do secondary or tertiary studies at certain colleges to achieve some other qualifications. So I learned to work around that. So yes, I was admitted in, obviously, the day the accident happened, and I was discharged from hospital on the 14th of December. So it was September, October, November, December. I spent 3 months in hospital, lying in a bed, and you know, it's yeah, it was a bad time of my life, but it learned me a lot, and it's a wake-up call in life. Of course, now obviously, with my status, I could not remain an operational commander anymore, and I was transferred to Special Forces HQ. So in February 96, I was transferred to Special Forces HQ, and Colonel Fred Volker was appointed in my position as Commander 1 Recce. My position then at Special Forces HQ would be SSO Operations, Special Senior Staff Officer Operations. Now, it was Brigadier Borman as the OC, and then the Chief of Staff, second in command of Special Forces, was Rolf Deploy. And then I was the SSO Operations and the rest of the staff. Then a very, very well-known person, Chris Schulenberg, which is a legend within the Rhodesian War, the Selous Scouts and the SAS. Schulis was then, I think, SO2 Ops. So, you know, I really learned to know, I never operated with him, but, you know, there I got to know Chris very, very well. And what an amazing person with such a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And it was great to actually work, you know, at Special Forces HQ. Of course, then Rolf ended his military career, I think in May, June, maybe July. So the post of Chief of Staff came vacant, and I was appointed as the Chief of Staff of Special Forces Brigade, which is the second in command, just below Brigadier Borman. So I held the post of Chief of Staff of Special Forces Brigade, as well as Senior Staff Officer Operations. I held both of those postings until I left Special Forces Brigade. Of course, that was an interesting time. And then, as I've said, Brigadier Borman, and I think he'll talk about that when he talks about his time as commander of Special Forces. He, in a diplomatic way, had to visit a lot of countries. He went externally a lot, and he was really away from the brigade for extensive periods or extensive times. So I used to act as the officer commanding temporary, and you know, ran Special Forces for a long time. Of course, and I just want to mention another thing about Brigadier Borman. You know, he once said to me, before I tell that story, at that point in time, Koos, the commander of 1 Recce was Fred Volker. He was, and we are all stalemates, same age, and we've all been operators, Special Forces qualified, badged operators, as second lieutenants up through to the rank of colonel. So Fred was the OC1 Special Forces. Krubert Nell was the OC4 Special Forces, and Julius Engelbrach was the OC of 5 Special Forces Regiment. Now, and obviously I was the SSO Operations and the Chief of Staff of Special Forces, all operators, all friends. We've all gone through the school together, you know, been through the Bush War together. And of course, I think it's the first time in the history of Special Forces that, you know, the main structure, except for Brigadier Bormann, was badged operators that came from the rank of second lieutenant up until full colonels. And, you know, we were all colleagues and friends. And you know, to me, it was just a pleasure, you know, working like that. And then the other thing of Brigadier Bormann is, you know, Brigadier Bormann once called me in and he said to me, Frans, you know, I understand, and you know, you at staff course and senior staff course, they are taught, you are taught the capabilities and the application and how do you use Special Forces or all the arms of services, so to speak. So, you know, he had that experience and he deployed Special Forces in the bush and in his area in the Limpopo where he came from. So they know, he knew how to, you know, use Special Forces. But he one day mentioned to me, he said, what a pleasure to be in this position. He said, I can focus on whatever, you know, the other political stuff. And he said, I've got commanders, I've got a chief of staff, and my commanders are all seasoned and qualified Special Forces operators. So leave the job for Special Forces to the guys that know how to do Special Forces operations. And that's how Brigadier Bormann handled us. And I think it's a very, very, not that he abdicated his responsibilities, by no means. You know, he strictly gave guidelines and, you know, the command appreciations and so on, which he had to do. He did very well. But, you know, it was a pleasure working with him and, you know, having that composition of commanders throughout Special Forces. Was then, I think it was in May, June of 96, after the integration training took place, we had to do a joint exercise where Special Forces as a combined organization with 7 Med should execute an exercise. So I drafted a concept exercise whereby we would, the scenario was the Umtata Transkei airport, they just built a new airport there, was occupied by a adversary force. They took some people hostage and, you know, there was a scenario. So, you know, we drafted that around an operation and all 3 the units would participate in that. Each one had his task to execute and do. And then in the final stage, 7 Med would deploy a complete medical post and surgical post to attend to the wounded. And I think it was probably, I stand to be corrected, but the first time in real exercise that the complete medical system was deployed by air and executed. And yes, I forgot to mention that Chris Blunden, Dr. Chris Blunden, who is a specialist anesthetist, was the commander of 7 Med at that stage. And he's also a badged qualified operator. So he's a doctor, but also a qualified Special Forces operator. So it was 1, 4, 5, and 7 Med that had commanders that was Special Forces qualified. Of course, that was a very successful exercise. There we also met, I think he was the president, or TT Matanzima of the Transkei, also a very, very nice guy to meet. And so that exercise went well. And I think that is probably the scenario, the exercise that was designed where the integrated non-statutory and statutory force special forces of all the units did one exercise that was executed. And I think that probably was the final gelling exercise that put the people on the way. Of course, that is the last exercise or the last activity I was involved with Special Forces Brigade. So as the commander, my accident into Special Forces Brigade, and then of course then on the staff of Chief of the National Defence Force, there is a position in the ops compartment which is called SSO Special Operations, Senior Staff Officer Special Operations. Now, that person is always requirements. He must have been a commander of one of the Special Forces units. He must have served at the Special Forces Brigade level. And then the person serving in that position is actually handpicked by Chief of the Defence Force himself, or his second in command, Chief of Staff Operations. Now, at that stage, Chief of the Defence Force was General Meyering, and the Chief of Operations was Lieutenant General Dion Ferreira. Now, Dion Ferreira Falcon was the commander that took over from Colonel Gert Nel when I served in 32 Battalion when we started the first reconnaissance group of 32 Battalion. So Colonel Dion Nel, Colonel General Nel Ferreira knew me well, and I've met. And obviously, through the briefings we had and the debriefs on operations, General Meyering also was aware of me. So I was asked to fill the post of SSO Special Operations on the staff of Chief of the Defence Force. And obviously, they discussed that with Brigadier Borman. And, I also saw that as an honor to be requested to serve in that position, and I accepted that position. So yes, I left Special Forces Brigade, and what was it? In January the next year, in 98, January 98, I accepted and started with Chief of the Defence Force, or on CJ Ops. Because the main tasks serving in that position is to advise the senior staff generals on Special Forces operations, the application thereof, revising the joint GWE's joint working doctrine to be aligned with a white paper on defense, because those things changed over time and with the new government. So all of those documents and staff work had to be done. And then obviously through working groups, and I would chair the working groups to have those documents and doctrines updated, etc. Part of operation instructions always came from Chief of the Defence Force. So, if operations was planned, obviously the commander of Special Forces and a unit commander would be involved, and the planning would be done, and the SSO Special Ops on the staff of CJ Ops would be included, and then the operational orders or instructions, not the order, the ops instructions would be drafted by the SSO Space Ops, presented to CJ Ops. He would authorize, sign that, and then issue it to Special Forces to execute the operations. So, of course, that was the main tasks in that position. Of course, but I want to jump one back, still with Special Forces in the HQ. We had a standing operation going. It was called Operation Blanket. Now, Operation Blanket was instituting all the emergency evacuation plans for our embassies in Africa. So we would work in close relationship with Department of External Affairs, the diplomatic services, and then go to all the countries and actually with them draft the evacuation plans if there was any problems within a country to evacuate the embassy and any South African personnel that was in the specific country. Now, that actually was allocated to 4 Recce. If you recall, in my previous episode, Operation Ivory was instituted to develop freedom of movement within Africa. So because we had the capability to freely move around Africa, Operation Blanket was also actually allocated to 4 Recce with the help of the other Special Forces units to develop and draft these plans. And that was also my put on my plate, and I was responsible for driving the blanket operations. Of course, why I'm mentioning this, in what was it, 97, 96, 97, the situation in the DRC or Zaire started getting unstable with Mobutu Sese Seko in charge as a long time. I don't want to call him a dictator, but you know, he was in the chair for a very, very long time, and Laurent Kabila was and his organization was opposing Mobutu Sese Seko. So the situation in Kinshasa and the DR or Zaire at that stage was becoming very unstable. Now, I had visited Kinshasa several times and worked with Foreign Affairs there, and I got to know, I think he was the charge d'affaires economically, Dawie Wit. Now, Dawie Wit, he used to serve in 31 Battalion with the Bushmen when he was a national serviceman. So I actually met Dawie way back when I was in 32 and he was in 31. But there we bumped into one another again in Kinshasa, and it was actually great. So myself and Dawie, you know, we had the evacuation plans, you know, very well sorted out. And obviously, I brought in some of the 4 Recce guys to be on the ground in Kinshasa to, would it be necessary to implement and execute the evacuation plans in Kinshasa or in Zaire at that point in time. Now, simultaneously with that, the negotiations between Laurent Kabila and Sese Seko, Mobutu, was taking place. And President Nelson Mandela was looked on very, very highly, and he was actually requested to be the mediator in the negotiations between Laurent Kabila and Mobutu Sese Seko. Now, at that stage, I had deployed with my small team to Kinshasa, and when President Mandela came in for his first visit to have talks with Mobutu Sese Seko, I had an operational TAC HQ on the airport in Kinshasa. So I had my team there, and we were also partially responsible for the security for President Mandela and his delegation that flew in. Now, to meet him on the apron, they allowed certain people to line up. They wanted, a certain lineup of people to welcome and greet him, and I was invited as well. Now, that was totally in civis, never in uniform, and that's how we operated. In any case, why I'm mentioning this, because I want to relate to that on later. There I had the honor to meet President Mandela when he came in the first time to participate in the negotiations. And I was introduced by him by the ambassador, and I forgot the ambassador's name now, but really a nice guy. And he said, I'm from the military, and I'm here to take care of possible evacuations and so on. And President Mandela was, really interested in that. He once again asked what my name was, and, everything went on. Cut the long story short, was then when the negotiations and the troubles escalated, there would be negotiations in Point Noir. Now, Point Noir actually belongs to Belgium Congo on the other side of the river. And myself and David Witt went, because David Witt had very, very good contacts in Belgium Congo. So we used to go over to Belgium Congo many a time to arrange our places where we would have safe areas if there was an evacuation, etc. And it was really heating up. On the one hand, back in South Africa and with the foreign affairs people, the whole negotiation process that would take place at Point Noir was arranged and organized. And that would take place on the SAS Outeniqua, which is a support vessel because Kabila said that he didn't want to negotiate on the ground in Zaire or any other place. He wanted to negotiate in a neutral area. So the plan was to have the negotiations on board the vessel SAS Outeniqua that would actually lie offshore, which would then be recognized as a neutral area on SAS, a South African ship, where it would take place. Any case, on the ground side, things were heating up. So we actually started implementing the first phase of the evacuation of the embassy personnel and the South African citizens from the Congo. Now, why I'm reverting to this was I got in contact with the British embassy as well as the US embassy, with their commanders that was facilitating the evacuation plan for their countries as well. And it was very, very interesting. The British took lead, and they actually established the base, and it was one of the parachute brigadier of the British forces. They established the safe area in Brazzaville, Congo, and we were linked up to them. And then we had to make finer arrangements as to our evacuation routes from the embassies and the places where we would get together. And everybody's plans basically boiled down to the same thing. You would go to the launching place on the Congo River, and there would be rubber boats and boats that would ferry you across to the other side with an area. You would be picked up and taken to the safe area. And it happened to be that the South African plan and the plan of the British was exactly the same. Exactly the same place where we would launch or, go on board, and the British would be the same. Now, if this plan was executed, we would go there and the British would go, and it would be a conflict of interest. So it was decided and it was agreed between the ambassadors that we would do it in a coordinated way and fashion. So that was also a very good learning school and curve course where we actually then, joined, and all our vehicles were marked. We exchanged the radios, and really the organization and the plans to actually execute an evacuation was very well sorted out and rehearsed. Was yes. So I left my team in Kinshasa to deal with that, and I would fly back if it was necessary. But then I was taken to with a tactical team and signalers to Point Noir, where the SAS Outeniqua would berth, and then negotiations would go offshore, and the negotiations would take place. But it took a long time to actually get hold of Laurent Kabila, because he was in hiding, and to actually get him to convince him to come to a neutral place, because he thought he would be assassinated or something would happen. So the CIA and the Americans was primarily in charge of liaising with him and actually getting him, and they actually flew him from the bush or wherever he was to the SAS Outeniqua on board one of their helicopters to attend the negotiation. But was, as it may be, in Point Noir, which is actually a nice place on the coast, it's African, and the people, and I'm not talking down or degrading them, they're just not used to this type of activities that take place. So it soon became apparent that, coordinating, because there was aircraft coming in from South Africa, from Belgium, from, all over the world, to actually attend and support this efforts of the negotiation. So, of course, it very soon I was running that whole operation. So I had a Scruffy, I can't remember his name now, but he was a pilot, a South African pilot. But he used to work at Special Forces HQ as well. So myself and Craffy, we had this operation in Point Noir 100% under control. Our signalers would establish communication, because air control was non-existent. So which aircraft was coming in when, who was on board, were they allowed to attend the meetings, etc. Everything had to be cleared and done. So that all fell into our laps. So, of course, we managed that from the VIP area of Point Noir, and we ran that whole operation. And very, very well. Who was coming in, what was the tail numbers, who was on board, where would they stay, and then we would liaise with the Belgium Congo people, and their VIP protection people would take them to their accommodation and so on. But what was going on, where they entered and where they left, was under our control, under my control. And they all, very, very soon saw it was working and it was going well. And, I never in my life thought I would be in such a position where, I could say to one representative of a country, you wait, you go into a holding pattern, XYZ is going to land first, and so on. But we did that. Of course, then, obviously, President Mandela himself came in. ZS-NIN is the tail number of the presidential jet, old PW Botha's jet. Yeah, so we had him, but he would come in only for 2 days, course. But then they battled to get Laurent Kabila in, and Mobutu Sese Seko had prostate cancer. So he also had to be transported in a very soft way, and the cushions and the vibrations in the aircraft, and all stuff like that. So it was very interesting, to deal with and manage all these funny stuff. But eventually, course, everything came together. So the 2 days became 5 days. Now, President Mandela only brought along 2 days of clothing, his Madiba shirts and so on. So just an interesting thing as well. And, he would, through his PAs, relate to me, he wanted 3 more shirts and, this, that, and the other. And I would give that to his pilots, and his pilots would fly down to South Africa and pick it up and bring it back to Point Noir. But it's a very interesting time. And then a very interesting thing. In my previous episode, I referred to one of our presidents, Thabo Mbeki, where I detected him in Kinshasa. I think it was Christmas Eve, '87. Now, he was. We were looking for him, and we wanted to take him out. So I'm not sure if he was the deputy president then or what his position was, but in any case, Thabo Mbeki came in as well. So I met after seeing him in Kinshasa in the times he was headhunted again in Point Noir. And we sat together for about half an hour talking about this, that, and the other, and so on. And interesting thing, Mr. Mbeki was never very friendly towards us. I think I don't know why, but I got the impression, because at one stage he said, "But why are you doing it?" In a very derogative way. Who are you now actually to do this? That type of attitude. But I explained to him who and what, and that we are also in charge of the evacuation plans, and yes, okay, well, that type of attitude. And I'm not saying it in a derogative way. Maybe that's just his way, and I'm not used to it, so I might be wrong. But in any case, then another person I met there was the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Aziz Pahat. Now, just the opposite of what I've just said about Mr. Thabo Mbeki. Mr. Aziz Pahat was such a gentleman, and he was the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he had such a big appreciation for the work we were doing, and the arrangement and so on. And I think he was more concerned about us than his own delegation of people. But he really made a huge impression on me, and he went out of his way to ask how he could assist, what he could do, and so on. But we had everything under control. But he really made a big impression on me in the way he dealt with us and his attitude. Of course, long story short, the negotiations took place. Now, I just want to say, the Special Forces had their planning very, very well. Now, Krubert Nel, who was the commander of 4 Recce at that stage, was on board the SAS Outeniqua, and with the whole commando of 4 Recce. So all the people scrubbing the decks and pumping the bilges and working on board the SAS Outeniqua was actually all Special Forces soldiers ready for action, for 2 reasons: to protect and to secure the SAS Outeniqua, as well as to be forced to intervene should things went oblong onshore in Kinshasa, and to assist with the evacuations. On board the SAS Outeniqua, there was 2 Puma Oryx helicopters. So, it was a typical 4 Special Forces operation that was run. So it was actually really a very well planned and a very good operation. Of course, then the last thing I want to relate to that is when Laurent Kabila and Mobutu and President Mandela left. At one of the state houses in Point Noir, there was a luncheon, a big do, a meal prepared in one of their state houses. So we also provided, we being my team of people, to do the security and to ensure that the things were stabilized and cared for there. Now, of course, Mr. Aziz Part came to me and he said, Frans, there's two tables are reserved for you and you have to join. He insists that we enjoy them, and there's going to be speeches, this, that, and the other. He insisted that we join them for the meal, etc. And I explained to him and I said, thank you very much, but we are not here to join the meal. We are here to do a job, and we will execute and do our job until everybody is safe and have left this venue. So he understood that, he accepted that. And of course, Mr. Aziz Payet made sure that our tables was not cleared. He ensured that the chefs and the waiters and everybody was there until everybody was left, and he himself attended with us and saw that we could have a meal and share in that splendor, so to speak. So of course, then in 2013, many years later, I was with a person at the Burgers Park Hotel in Pretoria. So I think a 5-star hotel, and we had business to do in relation with Somalia. But he said to me, he just have to participate in a meeting at the Burgers Park Hotel. So please come with him. I would sit somewhere and have a drink, and he would have his talk with whomever he had to meet, and then we would carry on and do our thing. So that was fine. I sat there, ordered a whiskey, and and he said he'll be back in half an hour, and after half an hour he was back. And he said, listen, the guests I was with, invited me for a after meeting drink, and he said he had someone waiting, and the person said, well, go and fetch him. We're not going to talk business now. We're going to just have a drink together. So I joined him, and who was sitting there? Mr. Aziz Fahad. Now, of course, when I walked in and Mr. Aziz Fahad stood up, he says, Frans, I know you. He called me by my name. It was more than 8 years after that. And I mean, then, you could really tap me over with a feather. And there we just, recalled this whole thing of Point Noir again. And really, I got a lot of respect for Mr. Aziz Fahad. The same with Mr. Mandela. In 2003, there was an AIDS conference in Gaborone in Botswana. Now, at that stage, I was working, and I was oversaw a few countries for Grey Africa, and Botswana was one of the countries I had to oversee. So Grey sponsored a table at this AIDS conference, and Mr. Mandela would attend. And of course, they're the same. Obviously, Mr. Mandela was the guest of honor, and we had a table quite close to the main table. And at this stage, he was staring at me, and I knew there was something, and the situation was of such a nature that I stood up, and I went to him and I said, and he said, "Point Noir, Kinshasa, your name is," and he talked in a slow way, "Your name is Frans." So Mr. Mandela and Izzy's part, I couldn't believe that they actually remembered and recalled after such a long time. So, some way it must have made an impact on them, what we did in Kinshasa and in Point Noir. And then just as a summation of that, of course, I received so many letters and commendations from External Affairs and Chief of the Defence Force, Chief Army, and all over the show for what we actually accomplished in Point Noir and with the whole situation with Laurent Kabila and so on. But that aside, of course, okay. Then back at CJ Ops, I told you what my responsibilities was there. Then in that time, I think it was May, June, the SSO Special Operations, myself, the SSO Air, and the SSO Navy joined Major General Andre Besbier for a visit to Canada. So that was also a very, very good experience. Brigadier Malcolm Kinghorn, also a Special Forces guy, was the military attaché in Canada at that stage. And we had a wonderful time. I think it was 2.5 weeks in Canada. And the main purpose was to go and visit their facilities of certain special operations, and then primarily for search and rescue, sea and land search and rescue. So, although being at a higher level in an office somewhere, we still had the opportunity and time to learn more and experience more things. Of course, I'm coming to the end of my talk, and I sat for a long time and wondered if I should, actually talk about this, but I decided I am going to, course. At that point in time, I was really enjoying what I was doing. Time moved on. It was 98, and a lot of changes took place. Not a lot of operations took place. So, I was more involved in revising doctrine, and I was included in working groups for air reconnaissance and stuff. Very interesting and very knowledgeable people. So my spectrum of involvement and knowledge, my learning curve really increased a lot. But from outside, especially from Grey Africa, Andre Diedrichs and a lot of Special Forces guys was there, and they were, really phoning me about every week. Don't you want to resign? Come and join us, blah, 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 blah. Of course, then a thing happened. My tasks, one of the tasks was to update the joint operational manual for the utilization of Special Forces. As I've mentioned, to be in line with the white paper of defense and so on. So let's say my target date to hand in the document was, I'm just taking a fictive date. Let's say it was the 30th of April. So I was finished the 25th of April, and I handed the document, printed, bound everything, electronic copy and a hard copy, to the senior person I had to hand it to. So job done, and I carried on with whatever I had to do. And let's say the 1st of May, I was walking down the passage in Defense HQ, and General Meyering was approaching, in the passage, and I saluted and saluted back. He stopped. He said, "Frans, that document that had to be with me fictively on the 30th, are you finished with that document? I said to him, yes, General. He said, where is the document? I said to him, I handed that document to General X on the 25th of April. He said, confirm you handed it in on the 25th. I said to him, yes. He says, can you print me another copy and bring it to my office tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock? I mean, if Chief of the Defence Force tells you to bring a document to his office at 6 o'clock the next morning, that's what you do. So, went back to the office, printed the document, prepared it, bound it, took it home with me, and, went in early, and I was at General Meyring's office at 5:45. And his personal aide, Brigadier Kali Stein, was there. He's an Air Force guy, and he asked me why I'm there, and I explained to him. He said, no problem. The general will be in now, sit in the waiting room, and we had a light chat. In any case, then this general who I handed this document to on the 25th also walked in there. I stood up, saluted him, morning, General, and he said to me, what the F are you doing here? And he said the F word. Now, I'm not going to repeat the language he actually used towards me on this channel. But in any case, so I explained to him exactly what had happened. And he said to me, but you effing know that it's my responsibility. You gave the document to me, and I will give it to the general. And I said to him, well, sir, yes, sorry, but this is what happened. And if the boss tells me I'm here at 6 o'clock to hand him a document, that's exactly what I'm going to do, and that's why I'm here. But in a very respectful way. And in any case, so he said, why didn't you inform me yesterday that was your that General Meyring said that to you? Now, I didn't even think about it, because it's a direct order from General Meyring. You bring me a document tomorrow at 6. So I don't know, maybe I should have told him. I don't know if I did wrong there, but in any case, there I was. So General Meyring came in morning, everybody saluted the boss, and went into his office, unpacked, and he called me in. Salute, went in, gave him the document, and he asked me, he said to me, Frans, confirm, you gave this document to General X on the 25th. I said, yes, General. He says, thank you very much, you can go. And as I went out, this general said to me, come and see me in my office. So I went down, stood at his office, waited at his office. He came back, and I stood in front of his office for about half an hour. And then his secretary said, okay, you can go. And when I went in, once again, like a good officer, as I was taught, from a second lieutenant, halted, saluted, went in. He closed the door, or I closed the door. He said, close the door. And he just ripped off at me again. Who the F are you to do this? And I said to him, but General, I have explained to you the whole situation. He says, you are fucking arrogant and this, that, and I will F you up. And, he kind of stood up and he said, ek donder jou sommer, and he went like this. And of course, something snapped in me. And I said to him, listen, yeah, General, I'm going to donder you back. So come and donder me. I'm going to fuck you up as well. And that's exactly what I said to him. Now, for a colonel to say that to a major general is not the damn thing. But I just snapped, and I lost it. In any case, I regained my wits, and I stood back and I said to him, General, I want you to repeat everything you have said to me. And I opened my diary and I said, repeat what you have said to me. And he was furious. He was steaming. So I said, if you're not going to say, I'm going to repeat it, and I'm going to note it down in my diary, and I'll have you sign what I'm writing down here. Now, that's a bit arrogant for a colonel to say to a general. But that's what happened, Koos. So in any case, he chased me away. I went out, and now I knew I had a problem. You know, this had occurred, and what to do now? So I called Brigadier Borman. I called, you know, that was my last commander I had. So I called him and I said, yeah, General, are you busy? I know you're busy, but can I come and see you? He says, of course you can come and see me. What's the problem? I said, no, I can't discuss this over the telephone. So I went to him, sat down, and I told him the story. And he said to me, Frans, I think you have big problems. I said to him, Brigadier, I think I do have big problems, but how do we address this matter? So he called the chief of the Army legal department. I can't remember his name now, but a very, very clever lawyer, and, you know, a very sloppy guy in uniform, but, you know, a very brilliant guy. So he said to him, you know, can we come and see you? Yes, come up. What's the situation? So he went up. I told him the story. He said to me, Colonel, I think you have a problem. I said to him, I think so as well. But what do we do? So he said, are you prepared to, you know, do a sworn statement? I said, yes. You know, he took down the statement, read it back to me, you know, put your hand in there. So help me God, you know, went through the whole process, signed the thing, and off we went. Now, the next morning, you sit in the order group, and this general is there, and I'm sitting there, and we are staring at one another. You know, I keep my respect, salute, you know, and do everything what I have to do. In any case, nothing is said. A week passed, and about after 10 days, General Ferreira called me. So he said to me, Frans, come and see me. So I went up to the general's office, went in. He said, sit down. He said, this thing that happened between you and General X, how on earth, you know one another. I selected you to be here because I know you two work together very well. How could this have happened? I said to him, General, I don't know. But, you know, he said, he's read my statement. He's read other statements, and, you know, it's a bad situation. So he said to me, there was an internal board of inquiry because Brigadier Kallistein also reported this apparently to General Meyer. And I think General Meyer said, you know, do an internal inquiry. So General Ferreira said to me, this matter is now with Admiral Smart. Now, Admiral Smart was the chief legal officer of the Defense Force, a Navy guy, the Admiral. He's got the, you know, the whole docket with him. And the advice is that there should be a court-martial. You know, I was in the wrong, but the general was in the wrong as well. He provoked me, and he said that Admiral Smart advised him that the probable outcome of a hearing would be a demotion of the general one rank down. And he said it was in my hands to decide if, you know, I wanted to carry on with it or, you know, just wipe it off the table. I said to them, I said to the general, you know, I don't want to ruin somebody's career. You know, it's just you know, I reached the point after telling this general 6 times what the situation was, and he, you know, kept coming back at me and swearing at me. The swearing part, you know, I can gut that stuff, but you know, when he said he's going to, you know, hit me and whatever, never challenge Frans Fourie. That is one thing. Doesn't matter who you are, if you're the president or the chief of, I couldn't care what, challenge me and you have a fight on that. In any case, so That was it. And I said to him, no, I don't want to carry on. And he said, thank you very much, because it would have been a big thing within the defense HQ and whatever. And he said to me, I had to go to the general and tell him I'm not going to carry on with this story. So he picked up the phone and he called this general and he said to him, Frans is coming to see you. So of course I went down. Once again, I stood there for 15 minutes waiting until he called me in. So, I said to him what had happened with General Ferreira, and, that's my decision. And the tears started running from this guy's eyes. And, he said, we will never be friends again. Not that I was friends with him in any case, but, we had a very good working relationship. And, don't think that we will be hand on the blast when I see you on the street, talk like that. And I didn't want to hear what he was saying, I just wanted to excuse myself. So I said, yes, no, it's the right, General, and saluted, and I went. And of course, I think a week later, I received a call from a guy called Johan Smit. He's in the intelligence services of the military. He was in 32 Battalion as well, and from Andre Diedrichs. They said, don't you want to join Grey Africa? And now, there's always pull and push factors. Now, the push factor for me working there was high after this incident. And what had happened is in Uganda, at a small town called Kasese. Kasese lies on the western side of Uganda, next to the border of the DRC, on the foothills of the Rwenzori Mountains. Now, at a small place called Kilembe, they mined copper in, earlier, and the tailings of the copper they extracted was very rich in cobalt. So there was, like the old mine dumps in Johannesburg, there was heaps and heaps of, this tailings. So a joint company between the French and the British called KCCL, Kasese Cobalt Company Limited, was formed, where they would extract and process the tailings and extract the cobalt. So they started, building the clearing the area and doing the civil works for establishing this refinery. And the ADL rebels came over the Rwanzoris and they attacked this project, and they attacked Kilembe and shot a few contractors and so on. So they wanted to abort the project. There was German contractors, Thai contractors, British and French. So they all withdrew. So they wanted an independent assessment of the security situation, and then a security plan as to how they were going to stabilize the Kasese situation. Hence the call to me, So Andre Diedrichs was asked to go and assess the situation there, and Andre said, Frans, kom saam met my, call Frans. And in any case, I went to the general, and I said to him, can I take leave for a month? I just want to break out after this very stressful time. And I was allocated a month's leave, and I went to Uganda. So myself and Johan Smit and Andre Diedrichs did the security assessment, and we drafted the plan and so on. Of course, to cut the long story short about that, they being the Ugandan government, the British embassy and so on, they were happy with the plans we drafted. And Grey Security made me an offer to come and work for them. I took that back to General Ferreira, and because he drafted me into the post. And I said to him, you know, I've been asked to go there. And to cut a long story short, was General Meyering and Ferreira jointly called me in, and they said, okay, they understand my situation. For who am I going to work, and you know, what is going to be my package? So they said they will sign a severance, voluntary severance package, but they wanted to know, am I going, what salary am I going to receive? Which company I'm going to work? Will I get medical? Will I get pension, etc., etc.? They said if they are not happy with that, they're not going to sign the severance package. So I went back to Alec David, who was the CEO of Grey Africa. I told him what the situation was. He drafted the letter, and I took it to them. So they were happy with that quiz. And I said they didn't want to lose me, but they understand the situation. This is a good opportunity. And eventually they signed the severance package. So that ended my 21 years career in the military course. But at that stage, I had 262 working days saved up leave to my credit. Now it's nearly close to a year. So, and I think policy dictated that you can, you know, take X amount, or they can pay out X amount. And, you know, I was still on the payroll of the military, but I took leave. So for quite an extensive time, I served in Uganda. Also met the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, still the president today. Briefed him on the plans, and Brigadier Kazini, the second in command of the military, was in charge of the western frontier. So I basically acted as the advisor to President Museveni and to Brigadier Kazini in stabilizing the situation there. Now that's also a very, very interesting story, and what I did there, and I stayed there for 2.5 years. But that's not part of my military career. So I'm going to end here with, I want to just reflect on maybe 3 things, Koos. I started off by studying law, and I wanted to become a lawyer. I spent in the military 21 plus years. I had such a great time in the military, and if I could choose over today, I would choose my career over in the exact same way. The second thing, or maybe it should have been the first thing I should have said, was the day I went to the military, I received a little Bible. I think it's the Gideons that gives out the Bible, and it's the New Testament and Psalms. Now, of course, I have that little Bible, which I received when I went to the military. I have it with me up until today. Now, I don't have it here on the table with me, but I took a photograph of it, and I will send it to you, and I want you to post it during this. Now, that little Bible quiz I carried with me throughout my whole military career, from a troop until a senior colonel, until I resigned, throughout my total civil career. And that I go nowhere without that Bible, which I read every day. So, quiz, the protecting hand of God Almighty was over me from I was born, when I was pushed into the swimming pool and could not swim, until the day until today. So everything I've experienced, Koos, and I want to say a distinguished career, I contribute and I praise God Almighty for that, and keeping His protecting hand over me. You know, Koos, after my parachute injury, I can't run anymore since that day. My left arm, I can only pick up using my right arm to pick it up. Otherwise, it drops. So this shoulder, I can, you know, that's maybe why the picture is skew on the. But So I am where I am today by the grace of God. And I want to thank Him for that. And I want to tell everybody out there that whatever I achieved and whatever I went through was by the grace of God. And I thank Him for that. Of course, then the last thing I want to say is Special Forces is special. You know, the spectrum of places I could visit and experience, etc., is just enormous. And I want to include 32 Battalion with that. And then lastly, of course, I want to mention that the first guy that died in the bush war in Angola is a Lieutenant Fred Zeli. And he died in the first operation on the 23rd of June, 74. And he was a badge Special Forces operator. The last guy that died in the bush war was a Special Forces person. And that is Corporal Herman Karstens. And he died on the 4th of April, 89. So, you know, Special Forces is special. And the first and the last guy to die in the bush war were Special Forces people. Special Forces still exist to this day. It's alive and well, and we interact with them occasionally, and it's going well. They are doing very well out there. I'm going to close off, course, by saying that, you know, I had a very good after military career. I'm on my farm now, but most of my post-military years I spent in on a strategic level advising governments and military organizations and security organizations on, you know, stabilizing and you know, sorting out military or security matters. I still do that on a consultation basis, and you know, whenever the time comes up, I do that. Of course, then the Special Forces has a veteran organization. Initially, it was the Special Forces League. We terminated that for various reasons, and we established it's called SASFA, the South African Special Forces Association. So SASFA is the abbreviation for that. There's 3 organizations. SASFA is the membership guys, you know, caring for the retired Special Forces people. Then we have an organization called South African Special Forces Heritage Foundation. I'm a director on the board of that organization, and that preserves the history, and hence this series of talks, as I've discussed with you, is to document the, you know, just my experience. And that's why we want other Special Forces people also to share on a broader spectrum to preserve the history. We also maintain and have the patent rights on all our badges, emblems, and names. So Special Forces, our badges and emblems are all registered trademarks, and the Heritage Foundation holds the rights to give that out to whomever to promote it in a positive way. Then we have Recce Inc. It's a business entity that does business to generate money by using the Heritage Foundation emblems, etc., and branding in various ways and forms to generate money to care and to look after the veterans of the Special Forces organization. So I'm encouraging people, of course, to have a look at Recce. Just Google Recce, and it will take you to the South African Special Forces Association website, and you can have an insight in the league, the Special Forces League. course, that brings me to the end of our discussions and my time in the military. And I want to thank you once again, Quest, for hosting this and your vision and doing this and your huge effort you put into to get a spectrum of people to participate. You are doing a wonderful work, Quest, and I believe God will bless you, and I believe people to come will look back at history and can go into a electronic library and listen to stories which was told by various people. So, Quest, thank you very, very much for that. And then lastly, Quest, to the people out there looking at all these videos and listening to the stories, thank you very much. I'm there. I'll look at all the my stuff, and I'll answer the questions wherever. And thank you very, very much for all the positive comments I've received so far. I really honor that, and I am humbled by all the positive things that people are saying. Thank you very, very much. And then lastly, Quest, I praise the Heavenly Father for the blessings He bestows on us. Thank you, Quest.
Well, I have to say amen to all of those things. I was sitting here and I made notes, and I made a whole bunch of notes, and I was just scratching them out as you were talking because you were answering all of them. I must tell you, sir, it's actually humbling for me as well to talk to people like you, because it's probably the most secretive unit ever. Yes, there's a lot of books, but let me tell you, being involved in writing one of them, there's a lot of things we leave out. And I know there's a lot of things you left out here as well. I know that from personal experience. But that what you've given to us is mind-boggling. It really is. It's history which we will not find anywhere else. So I have to ask you, because people are asking it all the time in the questions, are you planning to write your book?
Yes, I've been asked a long time ago. People say to me, just write down your experiences and memoirs, and I don't want to. And the feeling I get sometimes, if you write a book or even in a series like this, I don't want to promote myself as something or somebody that is special, or no, I don't want to do that, because that's not me. I just did what I had to do when I had to do it. And as I've said, it's a divine path that I was taken on, and I enjoyed it every single minute. But yes, the people has asked me to write it down, but I don't. What I don't want is somebody to read a book and say, Frans Fourie just wants to promote himself and make it as if he's a hero, or no, I don't want that. So I have started drafting a lot of stuff. What we talk here about, I've basically typed out. So, of course, yes, I think I've put my mind to it. How long it's going to take, I don't know. But as I find time, I will devote my time to actually, put down more things in writing, and put in photographs and whatever. So, of course, yes, I think I might consider that in a positive way. Yes.
I'm really glad to hear that, sir, because I don't think you've got anything to boast about, because you are who you are. People who boast normally are smaller, and they want to appear bigger. In fact, you are the opposite. You are what the legends say you are. And I said that the same of Mr. Mandela. He turned out to be exactly the same as the legend made him. And it's not often that we meet people like that. So I wish you luck with this book. And once it is out or it's ready, just contact me. We would like to inform everybody about it. And I always say to people, we have an open invitation to the Special Forces Association or the League. Whatever assistance they need, we would be glad to supply sorry, to supply whatever we can, you know, in terms of what we can do with this channel, because this channel exists because of people like you. We actually came to us and said, I have a story, I want to speak to you. And it's an honor, sir. There's really nothing about it. That's the beginning and the ending of it. Everyone contributed. Yes, true. But some of them have a bit more experience than others. And I don't mean that in a bad way either. I think South African Special Forces, there's something magic about them. If you just look at the comments, I mean, people are like looking at it and say, wow, we never knew this. And that is perhaps the reason for the book. Because there are still a lot of people in the world who want to read. They're not that interested in looking at the program, and there's a lot of other people who want to see the program, so they want to see both. So I think they can coexist quite easily.
Yeah. No, thank you for that question, and thank you for the pointers and the guidelines you've told me in writing the book and so on. I think I'm just a bit lazy, Chris.
Well, it's a lot of work to write a book, let me tell you. For those who haven't written any books, there's a lot of work which goes in before that book actually goes out. I think we can conclude this to say that between you and Brigadier General Borman, you sort of laid the foundations for the new Special Forces. And I think that should be the lasting legacy. He really impressed me, General Borman. He met Rebecca once here and they started speaking French. And then they switched to German. And I sat here frowning because I can follow both languages, but I can't really speak it. So he's also a fantastic man. If he's listening here, his episodes of his Command of Special Forces are coming out, I think, on the 17th and 24th of December. I thought at one stage it would be at Christmas, but then I thought, no, perhaps we shouldn't publish something on Christmas. Let's just leave a day open out of respect for those who believe. When we started this episode, Colonel Frans said to me, I think it's going to be very boring. And I thought to myself, man, that's not possible. And I was proven right. It was not boring. And I think everyone here, for all of you who are listening, thank you so much. Thank you for your comments. Again, there's an open invitation. If you have a story, please come and tell us. We are interested in you. We want to hear your story. It shouldn't die with you. Come and talk to us. And until we meet again, God bless.
Thanks, Chris.